Hello, my speech for the day is going to be on the benefits of playing video games. And I suppose I'll start first with my own self-experience for my belief that playing video games are beneficial for everybody, granted in moderation. For example, to start off with, there's my early childhood. While I was a young child, around the age of 3, my biological father had abandoned me and my mother, and was already suffering emotional trauma from that. And then to tack on that, afterwards my mother had remarried, and my stepfather then was both physically abusive and verbally abusive to me for the duration of my mother and him being together for just around 10 years. He was also verbally abusive to my mother at the time. And during that, since I was so young, I didn't know how to cope with it. I didn't know a way to. So in the process of trying to find a way out and to cope with it, I had found video games. And my mother indulged me in that and knew it was a good way for me to get away from everything. So I would use it to help deal with my emotions, sometimes anxiety and stress. Like, I would come home from school, and it'd be like a breath of fresh air. I would get on games like Pirates of the Caribbean that everybody knows from, like, the movie series and stuff like that as a kid. The Incredibles. And one game I remember in particular from my early childhood that actually also taught me something besides helping me cope with my emotional trauma was called Zaboomafoo. And those of you who are familiar with the show probably are like, yeah, we remember that too. Well, in the game Zaboomafoo, it would teach me things such as, like, about animals when I was young, different plants. You just hop around and it'd be like, oh, here's a giraffe, and it'd tell you information about it, and it was really neat. And besides teaching me things and helping me deal with my emotional trauma, it also inspired me. For example, as I was a kid, granted, since I had the abusive stepfather and stuff like that, I was also antisocial. I didn't really have any friends, and my mother was really protective of me, so I had no role models. However, I did find some in the video games themselves. They inspired me somewhat. I would see these heroes that would just perform these daring feats and just accomplish so many things. And I was like, I wish I could be like that. And then after a while of my stepfather ragging on me, he would sometimes say that I would never amount to anything and stuff like that. And eventually, through playing the games, I saw these heroes. I was like, you know what? I want to be like them. I'm going to prove that everybody who doubted me before is wrong, and that I can better myself. And it pushed me to go farther than I ever thought I could in life so far. There's also experiences with friends who also use video games to cope with their own problems, and it also helps us socialize with each other, because their families were sometimes overprotective or just wouldn't let them go out, and there'd be functions on video games such as going online and, interacting with each other, talking to each other, even though we're miles away, which is incredible. Then there is also an instance of real-world applications that also make me believe in the benefits of video games, such as education, educating people in professional work fields. For example, in the book The Brain Boosting Benefits of Gaming by Ari Kaplan, there is a school that is referenced in New York City called Quest to Learn that goes from grades 6 to 12 that utilize video games to help teach children and others, such as young adults possibly. And it would help them in subjects such as like math and geometry and other things like that. And through using this, they were also using a process that's also referred to called gamification, which would be taking everyday activities and making them more enjoyable or funner for people by making them more like games. For example, in a classroom, people would sit there and do tests, and they'd put up the little scores, and it's like high scores of them more of than test grades, which for kids that were already playing games before they went there would be extremely relatable and motivate them. Then there's also in the professional fields, such as the military, there was this game that was created in 2005 called Tactical Iraq, where military personnel were to play the game, and it would show them going to places like a cafe in Iraq and having to talk to the locals. And through the game, they would learn customs, the language, and decorum and behavior that would help them when they would be deployed overseas. And that would help them immensely. Also in the military, with drone operators, they would make the controls similar to gaming controllers, so it would give a more natural feel to people who would be controlling those that may have played video games beforehand. Then there's also a research project that was done by Sean C. Green, an associate professor at the time was a professor's assistant at the University of Rochester, and then also Daphne Bavelier, who was a professor of cognitive neuroscience. Sean Green now is also a cognitive neuroscience professor. In the study, they tried to see the effects of video games on people performing certain tasks, such as picking out visual details, reading prescription bottles, being able to tell the contrast and visual detail, which would help in occurrences such as driving in fog, which also helped. It would also show that people would be better at multitasking for games such as action shooters that played them regularly, and things such as that. There was also the third reason for me believing in the benefits so much of playing video games would be that there's a aspect of video games that just can't be replicated, such as in telling stories or helping people comprehend feelings that other people feel. For example, two games that have always held a bit of a spot in my heart that exemplify this immensely is a game called That Dragon Cancer that was created in 2016 by Ryan, by two parents, and also in tandem with a game studio. The parents were Ryan Green and Amy Green, who had a son that was terminally ill with cancer named Joel. In the game, it takes players through the step-by-step process of experiencing having to raise a child with terminally ill with cancer and affecting people in so many different ways of what it feels like the sadness, the ups and downs, many different things in the story, and their own experience. And then the next game that I'm going to refer to is called Depression Quest. And this game was released in 2014. That Dragon Cancer was I believe I already referenced it when it was released. And in Depression Quest, the people play as a person struggling with depression and showing what they will do, such as going to a therapist or all this. Basically, the goal of the game is to tackle the problem of depression and trying to solve it and how it affects a person. So you could do things from choosing to go to a therapist, getting physically active, going outside more, communicating with more people, trying to make more friends, all these different things that could also teach somebody in real life if they were suffering from depression themselves playing the game. And it could be awe-inspiring at most points. And now to end my speech, I would say to all of you in the audience right now, if you've ever played video games, you could probably relate to the content right now. And if you're still playing them, I would say still play them. Granted, do it in moderation. And see if there's anything that can affect you positively from, teach you new things, do all this other stuff. And people who aren't playing video games, give it a try and see if you like it. It could help you. For example, right now, during the COVID-19 outbreak, lockdown, it gives you something to do. But thank you all for your time, and please take into consideration the things I've told you and the stories I've told. Thank you.